Oh, yeah, I get a lot of fur off with the sticky roller, but but it gets ticks off really easily.
This.
Whip. Yeah, I don't want to go near that. It's gross.
I took 2 sheets that I used to go. Seat cover in the truck. You and your dog saying? Well, and Chris's dog. Hundreds. Well, one of them lines. Yeah, but I don't know, they're on. I mean, occasionally I'll get one that's dying.
Yeah.
And they take.
Yeah.
Uh,
And the ones I get off of Nell, they're not embedded. They're just crawling around on her. So then I use a sticky roller on her. She loves it. She thinks that she's getting brushed.
I literally changed. Well, I heard that all day and then you're usually on March.
Yeah, the team didn't come down there for, I don't know.
There's somebody here where I, you know, they show up, they put it in the house.
Yeah, I know they covered it. Guy that comes to my place to be here, not on wood.
Well, they really very small, not really. I'll get you.
Neil, I worked on work that was before. I don't know. Just next year. Separate ones, the number of the bags, one through it.
Right. Yeah. Oh, and it's same with the original configuration.
The guy actually.
That's a little late this morning. I don't want to be, didn't want to get this. I don't think. See, it was not- that's maybe that I don't know.
Yeah, so I'm glad that it was today and not like Sunday, Monday.
Are we ready now?
Ready.
I would make a motion to seal the minutes on the closed session. All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. Is there any public comment? Chris Warfel, you're gonna apologize and Chris, come.
Chris Warfel, Ebbets Hollow. The Block Island Utility District has a board vote due by October 2nd. The town of Shoreham vote for the board, I feel, needs to be a matter of public record. I have expressed my extreme dissatisfaction that a town employee in the building department is on the board. The town of Shoreham publicly portrays a concern for our environment and has a multitude of commissions and committees that are dealing with global warming and sea level rise. However, going back to the time when I was on the town council, the town has done actually very little in government policy advocating energy and energy efficiency issues. Now is the time to vote for change at the board level. I am 100% against casting a vote for either of the incumbents. They were integral to the current regressive policies. I think this is a town council decision. And if you want to put our money in a way that would help the customers and the environment, please vote for those who have demonstrated skills in these issues. You know, I'd be glad to express my opinion and recommendations, but maybe that's not appropriate. But this vote should be a matter of public record, I think. I am not comfortable with what I feel is cronyism within the town, within the state. And it's inappropriate for a building official in the town to be on this board for reasons that you should be aware of. And I would like you to basically make who you're voting for open for discussion as a town council agenda item. And I don't know if there's any time left, but please do not vote for either of the incumbents. They've caused a tremendous amount of problems here. They have raised the cost of interconnecting customer generation by $4,000 to $5,000. They have decreased unnecessarily the income that a person could get from their investment in renewable energy by 50% on the guise of economic hardship. I think all of you have eyes, and if you look at what's going on at the power company, I don't see any economic hardship. This has been a facade and a skewed analysis. And it's the people that exist on this board, majority, that bought into this, supported it. Please do not re-elect either of the incumbents. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. You texted me about this earlier. I'm not supposed to respond during public comment, but I asked Marianne, our vote has not been cast yet. And we do have a meeting that I think would be timely. So just so you know, Chris, it's not. Right. Is that fair, Marion? I know we're not.
Voted, you
Yeah.
said the council makes that.
Yes, that's
authorization.
what I remembered
Yep.
after. Yeah,
And October 2nd is your next council. meeting.
right. Is there any, what's that?
There's the vote.
The deadline is October 2nd. I would imagine, and I'd be happy to do this, I can call Jeff and say, can we deliver it on the morning of October 3rd? Because I know I counted votes last time and I think it was the day after the deadline. Right?
That you can drop it off. it's
Can
fine.
drop it off?
And
Oh,
they have
great.
An outdoor
Sure.
ballot.
Wonderful.
Depend on the time.
Great.
They may have it time.
Fantastic. So-
I'm sorry, I'm confused. The ballots are in the mail. They
Yes.
came to everyone. Is Chris asking for us to vote on it
The
then?
town is a customer and therefore gets a.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Thank you.
yeah, good question.
Who is the appointee?
Question I have, that's. usable.
We don't have one.
Votes does it have actually get?
Is it per meter? Because you have multiple meters. You are the largest consumer, I believe, of electricity in the town on Block Island. Is it, my understanding is it's by meter. So you have probably quite a few votes.
Hey, Chris, can I ask you if we can answer that on October 2nd, just because it hasn't been agended and I want to be careful to the extent that it becomes contentious that we haven't done it that way. But we'll have the answers to those, Chris. Yeah. Any other public comment? All are welcome. No. Moving on to the consent agenda, we have one item. It's letter B. Act to approve memorandum of understanding between RIDEM and the town of New Shoreham regarding the National Shellfish Sanitation Program for sanitary control of shellfish produced and sold for human consumption. That's not quite ready, so we won't be acting on that. The others are pretty self-explanatory. I did have one question that I should have asked when I put the agenda together. The tax abatements that we're approving are I'm hoping not material budget wise. Or are they?
You do have one that's pretty material. You have a $375,000 one where there was an error in the property. Not so much the valuation, the classification, it's farmland, which is the taxes are set at a lower rate. So when Amy was going through that process and putting together the grand list and the tax
Right.
bill, there will be an abatement to the tax. The
So
amount of.
Is that for the current tax year or is that for the?
That's for this tax year, correct?
And what's the impact of that? I mean, it is what it is, but I think we should know this.
Yeah, what I would suggest doing, I think Amy would be better to answer the
Great. Yeah.
impact as it relates to the grand
Right.
list, and I think she's here, so
Oh,
I would,
okay.
yeah,
Thank you.
she is.
Hi,
voting.
Amy.
Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry. Marianne, I didn't, if there's anything else you wanted to add before.
No.
Okay. Yes, it is an impact and it definitely is the most material impact on a tax abatement that I've seen. And it was a result of a misclassification during the revaluation in terms of land being either commercial or exempt. So that will be a revenue item that we'll have to take into consideration. It will impact the current year budget so that we know that there will be a revenue shortfall. How exactly that balances out in the long term is really going to intersect with how we close out the fiscal year 23 fund balance. And we're still working on those year-end closing entries. So I
Gotcha.
can give a much better answer of
Yeah.
what the recovery period is in terms of long-term impact once we've closed the fiscal year 23 audit. And I'll have a conversation about when we think we'd be recovered from that abatement, which does impact fiscal year 24.
So this is, as I said, it is what it is, you know, the classification is a classification. I just wanted to highlight it and talk about it before we moved on it.
Yes, it is a very real thing that everyone needs to be aware of.
Wonderful. Thank you. Can I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. when emphasis on brief here, item number 4, brief initial discussion regarding town website goals. This is just, it feels like a lot of the things we talk about, whether we're talking about parking or whether we're talking about short-term rentals or, whatever, there's the potential for a fit with the town's website, and Millie and her team have probably been making unknown to us, I'll use us, but truthfully unknown to me, making a lot of progress in this area. And I did want to, if you don't mind, just sort of spending 20, however long you think, but the stuff you're working on, and then sort of talk about maybe we can have the consultant that we retained sort of come to a future meeting so that we can talk to them about what our goals might be.
Very good. So the clerk's office is moving all of our business licenses online. We have OpenGov, which has been used now for about 2 years for contractors, for any building permits, that kind of thing. So we are dovetailing off of that program. And so all of our licensing, business licensing, which includes, your food license, your victualling license, your mobile food, your liquor license, et cetera, rooming house, they are all going to be done online. We are actively open now and moving through that process. We're doing a lot of consulting and working with the applicants to get them on. I think once we get through this hump, renewals will be a lot easier. Everyone will have gone through it, and the information, there's a lot of data entry that goes into it at the beginning. So anyway, that's a great thing, and it'll make it a lot more streamlined for our office and also hopefully for the applicants. And I have just had an initial installation conversation with a APRA contractor. So we have signed, Marianne signed a contract with somebody who we were able to negotiate down to
APRA
quite a bit.
is the public records.
Access to public records
Access to
request
Public Records
system.
Act, just.
Yeah, thank you. So you'll be able to make your access to public records requests on our website. And you'll also be able to track it as it kind of moves forward. We will have an internal tracking program, which would be very helpful to us. Also work dovetail well with other departments that have to respond accordingly. And but as far as the requester goes, they'll be able to know get that information. They'll drop right into, they'll get progress emails as it goes along as well.
So on OpenGov, and we can do this again, at another meeting, but one of the things I know that came up when Molly was doing a lot of research on what other towns are doing, and I think you, Neil, on parking, but I know Molly on some of the short-term rental stuff is citizen-initiated concerns or complaints, for example. I see someone down the road who is whatever, has their house rented and there are 50 people there, whatever, or that's actually not an accessory dwelling unit, that's an accessory residential structure, what have you. And one of the questions I have is there, and maybe other clerks know this, Millie, is there a way to integrate that kind of functionality with our system, I guess?
Can certainly explore it.
Yeah, thanks. So anyway, I don't know. I just wanted to, honestly, it's this agenda item is something that's I think of, and then I forget to put it on. I forget to put it on the agenda.
Well, no, I just want to say, so when I spoke to the land use officer, she indicated that OpenGov might be perfectly set up to do the if, when we do a short-term rental registration, I think that's what you're referring to, that that OpenGov, this could be, that the licenses could be accommodated on OpenGov, whether or not
Yeah,
complaints could be accommodated on there or not is a different matter,
Yeah.
right? Is that how you feel about that too?
Yeah, right. We can build, that's what we've been in the process of doing for these
Right.
past 2 months, really is
Yeah.
building out each license. So
Right.
if we were to add another license, we would build that out as well.
And then to go back to what you had said, so if there's a business owner who's not terribly, computer savvy, they can come talk to you about how to file their license online, and you guys.
Yes, so we're happy to sit down. We had someone in the office today sit down and we went through and inputted the entire application for them because they were having some trouble at home with some of their devices. So
Right, okay, because I talked to someone and she had to upload something and she not an uploader.
we would
Okay.
we would be the ones to help for sure.
You guys can help them with that.
It
Right.
sounds like a t-shirt.
Coming from the house of not an uploader.
Millie, this is as good a time as any to say, I just think that team that you've assembled there works. It's not a misnomer to call it a team, and it's really impressive. And I just appreciate so much the leadership and the willingness of everybody to kind of try new stuff and drag us to where we need to be. So thank you.
Yeah, I'm just say, I think it's important that we keep the fact of a website, an active website, an ongoing website, being worked on website, in front of the public, because increasingly, it shouldn't be this way, but it is. Other sources of information aren't that good, or that consistent, or that authentic. And I know it's a third rail, I'm gonna say it. Bulletin board is absolutely not something that can be relied upon for notices, and I wish people would stop saying it is, because I know how much I clear that thing out probably 3 times a day and still get a lot of stuff that goes into junk.
Mhm.
And it happens to you, doesn't it, Neil?
I have dropped off.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, at
And it's
times
just
it is.
so just so much that could be important that gets lost.
By the way,
Maybe
do you
this
know when
way
there's going to be a
affects
vet on island? That was a joke. That was a bulletin board joke.
you said-
I'm sorry.
Has anybody on Yankton Road seen the golden dog? I know. But it isn't, I don't know, maybe
Yes.
that's another conversation, because I think people have come to really be abusing.
You know,
board,
I
which
think
isn't
that,
our thing, but
I think that's a really good point. I think it is the classic nature of pouring a vacuum too. You know, in other words, we can do a better job of pushing stuff onto the website to make it, I'm agreeing with you 100% on this. But it's a process, and it needs, there are probably 50 things we can do, but we need to decide, every year what the 2 or 3 we're going to focus on, or the 1 or the, whatever.
and I think, and we've seen this particularly the past almost month now since the fire. Anybody who's on Facebook is seeing the number of people going, "Well, I don't know what's going on. I can't find out any information." It's just, it's there. Look for it.
Yeah.
And at a certain point,
Yes.
I'm
Yes.
gonna turn my microphone off.
So anyway, whether it's October 2nd or at some point during October, I think having those consultants and, just sort of, and maybe it's a work session thing, I don't know, just conversation about the functionality there and what our goals are for it. In terms of item number 5, updates on short-term rental ordinance, I thought we had some very constructive input at the work session we had this week. I know that Nick certainly had a sense. I haven't spoken with him about it. I don't know whether you have, Molly, had a sense of kind of some of the more challenging sections. And I assume, Molly, that you and I will work with Nick and on an updated draft and figure out what's next. Does that make sense?
And I don't know about you, but I've gotten so much feedback in the last 2 days.
Yeah.
Overwhelming amount of feedback.
Yeah.
But I think everybody should just, my suggestion would be if you have feedback about it, if you could use the numbers. So that's what I've sort of been suggesting to people. If you're going to write us a letter and you want to address a piece of the proposed ordinance, it's helpful if you use the number that
Yes.
refers to the
Oh, good
piece
point,
that you're
yeah.
talking about. So, because some of the letters, you know, I actually want to take my copy of it and put everybody's feedback in the right place so we can change the right things. But if, and I have gotten a couple people who are just like, it stinks and you stink, and that's okay too. You can send that. I don't have any place on the document to write that, so I'll just keep it separate. But so anyway, it is helpful, and we do want feedback.
Yes.
It's more helpful to have feedback. We can't accommodate every situation if we don't know about every situation.
Right. Absolutely. Any other comment on that? It's just to update people, because I know it's on front of mind for some people. Receive an update, item number 6 on accessory dwelling unit group. That group, which has included 2 members of planning, Sven and I, Karen Browning, Chris Warfel, Alicia Miro, has actually at this point been one of the most satisfying things I've worked on since I've been here, I think. And it's now in the hands of Karen Browning, who I don't think is on, but Karen is our new land use attorney after Bill Landry retired from service. She's really terrific. I got to tell you, I just, that zoning stuff is, as Martha knows, is a real, you have got to be very detail oriented. Otherwise, the opportunity for unintended consequence is quite high. And I just have been really quite taken with her. So that's been very positive. Chris, we're on to number 7, which is the ordinance we're talking about. What do we need to do? Extend it to a date certain? What's?
Yeah, you have to extend it to a date certain, unless, Chris, you're comfortable to withdraw. It's your choice.
Well, Chris Warfel, I just want to concur with Mr. Stover's assessment of Karen Browning. She is amazing. Her ability to handle multiple ordinances, package them into a way with a number of us jabbering at her with our recommendations, keep a good sense of humor and keep it right, has been incredible. Just been very impressed. It's really at the council's pleasure. The ordinances are really being completely rewritten for public review. And the only thing I didn't see happening was if the town provided funding through whatever mechanism. And the recipient of that funding decided to basically abrogate or cut short the responsibility for seeing the affordable housing unit through its term. And then how do we get our funds back? That really we have not discussed to my memory through our mini meetings. And I wonder if that is something that the council would like to include or feels it's appropriate when public comment period is such. If so, if it's a public comment decision by the council, I will withdraw this because we can discuss it later and you don't need to keep putting this on the agenda. And taking up space.
Well, as you know, for me, Chris, and I think others, I think that's an important part of the conversation is, you know, whether it's the state making some money available, feds making some money available, the town deciding to make some money available to sort of leverage opportunities to use ADUs to solve some of the year-round housing issues. I think the conversation is a necessary next conversation to me,
Well,
if that helps.
it does. I just, you know, I don't think there's any point in keeping this on your agenda. If really the best efficient use of the council's time, the public's time, is to wait for the public hearing, and that it can be discussed at that point, because it really
Okay,
hasn't been.
yeah, we haven't really.
We haven't really done
No, we
anything
haven't
with it.
really done that.
So it's kind of this one
Yeah.
part that I thought was very important.
Yes,
But we have not brought it to Karen
Yes.
Browning.
yes,
And to do so now would probably be not fair to her. And I can bring this up
great,
at the time of public hearing.
good. That's
So-
terrific. Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
let's do that. I will officially withdraw my 519 ordinance revisions. Is that sufficient?
Your application to.
Application for 519 revisions?
We have, for our next item, a report from Dr. Alan White, who's a research meteorologist at NOAA. And Dr. White, the price of admission here is going to be, we need to have your cell phone number so we can call you and say, what's really going to happen with that storm, okay? Thank you very much for being here.
Thank you very much for having me. It's really a pleasure to be here. Although I've been in Colorado for 34 years, I grew up in New England, went to school in Rhode Island. My youngest daughter taught for 2 years for Teach for American in downtown Providence School. So we have a family connection to this
Oh,
area.
wonderful.
What I'm going to talk to you today, first of all, let me tell you, I'm a research meteorologist. I'm not a forecaster, but I'll help you out.
Okay.
I can hook you up with some good forecasters. It's the Wind Forecast Improvement Project, which is going to start this fall with installations here on Nantucket, on Martha's Vineyard, on the coast of Rhode Island, on Cape Cod. So there are many players in this project, and I just thought it would be nice if someone
Yeah.
explained to your council what we're going to do
Thanks.
here.
Yeah,
on
appreciate
Buck
it so
Island.
much.
Next slide. So this is not a new type of project. We've been doing this for many years. We started in the Midwest with our first wind forecast improvement project, and there were 2 subdomains, one in the Dakotas, one down in Texas. And then the second wind forecast improvement project was in the Columbia Basin, where there's a ton of wind energy, enough to power Portland and Seattle, for example. So now we wanted to come to the Northeast to do a study offshore, because I think it's coming. I hear contradictory stories, but I think you're going to have some wind farms south of Martha's Vineyard. And so this, you know, we wanted to partner with the Department of Energy, which is another big agency in the government. And NOAA funds quite a bit of the WFIP projects through NOAA. The money comes to us for the work that we're going to do. Next slide.
So the real catalyst for this work you're doing is the fact that there's going to be wind farms. Gotcha.
Correct.
Yeah.
There are 3 primary goals to our project. We want to observe the key variables from the atmosphere and from the ocean that control wind resources in the area. We want to understand better both the meteorological and the oceanic processes that occur in different seasons. So this is going to be a study for 1.5 years. We're going to be here for a little while. And then we want to improve wind energy forecasts through better understanding that we learned in that 1.5 years. But the important thing for you guys to remember is that any weather forecast improvements are going to help the general public, they're gonna help your aviation, they're gonna help your fishermen, so we're not just doing this for wind energy, we're
Right.
doing it for everyone.
Yeah.
And the bottom quote there is just a quote from the science plan that says NOAA and DOE are gonna work together to make this happen. Right. Next slide. So who are the groups that are coming? Well, the Department of Energy funds several non-federal team members. The leader of that's going to be the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute, which most of you are familiar with. Then it funds its own DOE national labs, and the leader of that's going to be the Pacific Northwest National Laboratory. And then NOAA and DOE fund NOAA to participate, and our lab, the Physical Science Lab, is going to be the lead of that. That's the who. So where and when, that map's a little small to see, but there are lots of places where we're going to be deploying instruments. The red dots are the land sites. The pink dots over the water are buoys. So some of the buoys already exist, but we're going to add some other buoys. Actually, you're going to have LiDAR on them. LiDAR is light detection and ranging. And then hopefully we're going to have a ship here in the wintertime. When the ship's not there, there's actually going to be a large barge that they're going to float out. It's going to have special instruments on it. Installation of instruments will be in November through January. We were hoping to be here the first 2 weeks of November. The barge isn't shown on there, but basically it's going to be offshore. About where that black line is, that's the ship track. But the barge will be there part of the year.
Is that the one that just goes down?
Yeah, that black line. A couple factors are going to impact whether we can show up in November. One of which is whether the government stays open October 1st. The other big issue is that the government is putting in a new financial system, so there's no travel allowed from the 1st to the 25th of October. That may get pushed back. There's a shutdown. These are to be determined. And then the study starts officially in February and goes to July of 2025. Next slide. So what? So all the boxes that have our star in them are things that are going to come to Block Island. In the upper left is a Doppler wind profiler. These instruments provide wind profiles in all weather conditions, rain, snow, any conditions they can measure the winds. In the middle on the top are Doppler LiDARs. They do the same thing. They measure wind profiles, but they can get much lower in the atmosphere. And so they can actually provide wind measurements at hub height. But they don't work when it's cloudy or when it's raining or when it's snowing. The light gets attenuated.
So you're not using it in the wintertime out here?
Well, we will, but that's why we have two systems, one that works in all weather conditions and one that doesn't. Yep. In the upper right is it looks like a very strange thing, but basically they're measuring all of the radiation components to characterize the surface energy balance. So downwelling solar, reflected solar, long wave up, long wave down. And they do it very precisely so that you can accurately characterize what's going on in energy. And then in the lower left is a trio of systems. One is what's called, the one that looks like a mailbox is a microwave radiometer. The one in front is an infrared spectrometer. Both of those systems measure temperature and humidity profiles, but they're done indirectly. So it's a retrieval method. It's not direct like the LiDAR and the radar profiler. And then in the background there, the narrow thing is a laser ceilometer, which gives you information about cloud base, cloud height, cloud depth. And then we'll have a 10-meter meteorological tower that ties the surface measurements to the remote sensing measurements, which start a little higher in the atmosphere. So don't be surprised when these strange looking things show up at your airport.
Is that where it's going to be?
Yeah, we'll get there in a second.
Sorry.
Next slide, please. So we will have an equipment trailer because we have to put all the electronics and the data acquisition computers in an environmentally controlled environment. And then some of the data we pipe back to Boulder right away. And all of that data is made available to the public. So if the airport wants to see if there's wind shear, they can look at the data and say, yep, there's wind shear at this altitude. I'll show you a product in a minute that will also help with aviation.
That's really interesting. So theoretically, members of the public on a particularly, after a particularly windy event could go onto this website and find out what the peak wind velocity was and that
Yes.
kind of thing. Interesting.
Yeah, so we display it in real time, but we also archive it. So if you
Yeah.
want to go back and look at past events.
Oh, that's cool.
Yep. Next slide. So just a couple example of products, and they're probably too small to see, but on the upper left are hourly wind profiles. So the x-axis is time and the y-axis is height. And each of those little barbs represents a wind measurement. And that's a 48-hour display. And then if you want to see sub-hourly winds, we also calculate that if you would see them in higher time resolution. And then the upper right is a product that determines where the freezing level is in the atmosphere, based on an algorithm I did 25 years ago. So the patent has run out, so it's in the public domain. And that gives information for people who are worried about icing too, because we also plot the surface temperature. And if that goes blue, it's freezing at the surface, you're going to have an ice storm. Yep.
That's cool.
Next slide. Okay, so the NOAA super sites on the left is your airport, and that's where we're going to put all our instruments on the south side of the runway. We have FAA approval to do that. We do not have a lease yet with the Rhode Island Airport Corporation, but they said that they would sign it this week. So hopefully we'll have a lease soon. We're not going to be that spread out because they're charging us money for the land. So we're going to be as compact as we can. On the right is the water treatment plant on Nantucket Island, and that's the other place we're going to put a lot of the same instruments.
Wow.
So that's my presentation, and I'd be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Chris, did you want to ask Dr. White a question?
I'm just curious, what is the need for this study? What has been a problem with the historical data? Because I've used a lot of wind data in my work, and I'm just curious as to what was wrong with that, or what needs to be improved with that data for this study.
So in the last wind forecast improvement project, we did it in complex terrain, and we learned that the models do not do a good job with cold pooling and surface temperature in those narrow valleys. And so we had to correct that bias in the model so that it would do a better job with stability. The issues in the Northeast there are lots of them. What are the impacts of the islands? What are the impacts of the wakes of the turbines? What are the impacts of the ocean surface? So again, if the water's colder than the air or the water is warmer than the air, what does that do to the low level winds? What are the mechanisms that mix down higher level momentum over the ocean? Because over land, sun heats the land and you mix down, eventually the boundary layer grows and you mix down air from the top. But we don't know if that's going to always occur over the ocean. So there are both dynamical concerns that we're after, there are thermodynamic concerns, and it's a data poor region. So we need more observations to figure out how the models are doing.
Are you saying the existing statistical models that have been used are not accurate, and if so, by how much they are not accurate?
No, I mean, that's one of the things we have to do is verify what the accuracy of models are in this region, which we don't really know.
With real observation.
With real observations,
Right.
not surface observations.
Yeah.
You can't verify the profile in the model with surface observations.
It's fascinating. David. Don't leave, Dr. White.
Wait,
I just was saying, don't leave.
right, don't go away. I think one of the meteorological data collection sites is run by the National Data Buoy Collection Center. You familiar with that? So, you know, a lot of people here on Block Island pay a lot of attention to those sites, specifically for wave heights, if you're a
Yes.
surfer. But I noticed just in the most recent tropical storm incident that there are sites like there's one that's near Montauk. We have our own 5 miles of Southeast Light. And not our own, the closest one, I should say. And the one at Montauk only deals with wind speed and temperatures, where the one out there at 5 miles southeast of the island deals with wave heights and water temperatures, not air temperatures. My question is, will any of this data, is there any opportunity to put wind metrology collection with the buoys that only do wave metrics at this point in time? And in the future, would you provide us with websites that your data will be posted with?
Absolutely, yep. I can't answer questions about the National Data Buoy Center, but yes, in short, they should be able to add different measurements to the buoys. I know that there will be new buoys in this project that have LiDARs on them, and so they will provide wind information. They will probably also provide surface information and maybe even water temperature. I don't think they'll have wave height. Yeah.
Can I ask a layman question? Just one, because I've heard the term LiDAR, but I'm not quite sure I understand what that is.
So, yeah, I said radar is radio detection and ranging. So the radar spectrum goes from 3 hertz to 3 terahertz. LiDAR is light detection and ranging, so it uses lasers. And the light spectrum is not as regulated as the radio frequency spectrum is. Everyone wants to get into the radio frequency spectrum, but these are LiDARs that you should not, they'll have signs, but you shouldn't stare down into them because a laser is shining up. So,
Right.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha. Interesting. That was terrific. Thank
Can I
you.
ask
Yeah,
a really silly question, but do you think that having this information collection here will that improve our weather forecasting, or?
It may not improve your human forecast, but it should certainly improve your weather model forecast. So what we're aiming to do is uncover biases in the model and correct.
Yeah, that's a really good question, because it's fascinating how often it feels like the forecast for our little spot is different than what you read in the morning. Seems especially acute here, where you see the storms literally go around. I mean, you see this, Bill, all the time, like the storm, there's a storm predicted and the clouds go around the island that way. It's really it's an unbelievable phenomenon.
Yeah,
for someone who doesn't know anything.
Again, that's why we're covering, 2 years roughly of observations, because we want to get seasonal information.
Great.
Cool. Thank you, Dr. White. Welcome back to Rhode Island.
Thank you.
And you will, would you email Millie or somebody with the web addresses? Because that's something I'd love to see. Wonderful. That's terrific. Next, we have Lauren Fogarty, who's the program coordinator for RI 250, the Rhode Island 250 Commission, Rhode Island's 250th anniversary. And we may have stuff to do to help with the celebration.
Yes. Good
Depending
evening.
on how good they are to us in the next legislative session.
That's fair. That's fair. Good evening, First Warden and counselors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight about an important initiative currently underway. My name is Lauren Fogarty, as you mentioned before, and I'm the program coordinator for the Rhode Island 250th Semi-Quincentennial, I know it's a mouthful, Commission, or RI 250 Commission. I'm also joined this evening by RI 250 Commission Member Pam Gasner, former Block Island Historical Society Executive Director. In 2026, we're set to mark the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. For some, this milestone may elicit memories of the excitement associated with the bicentennial period of our nation. I'm here today to bring attention to this tremendous opportunity for each community across the state and nation alike. Thank you for having us here today in the beautiful town of New Shoreham to promote the creation of local 250th committees. RI 250 has been charged with developing ways to recognize and honor this anniversary in our state. The mission of the commission is to commemorate the 250th anniversary of our nation, the events throughout history in which our beautiful state has had massive influence, and our largely forgotten role in the formulation of our nation. Most notably, our contributions to the ideals of freedom, equality, and independence. We at the Commission are most excited to help facilitate this milestone statewide and multifaceted, years-long commemoration. And we intend to engage as many Rhode Islanders as possible. And we believe that the natural next step is to organize at the municipal level. One of the duties of the Commission is to collaborate with local organizations to promote the pivotal role that Rhode Island played in the founding of our country. Therefore, we would like to take this time to invite New Shoreham, Block Island, to organize a local 250th committee to encourage the most comprehensive and inclusive commemoration possible. And I have shared with your town clerk a pamphlet provided by the American Association for State and Local Histories, AASLH, who have taken the reins on this project at the federal level. Although this information is directed at a larger scale commission like RI 250, I find the resources and toolkit outlined are helpful for this particular endeavor. The example of a working group seems like the best approach. And I know that Block Island is no stranger to large milestones celebrating your 350th in 2011. Pam has mentioned and helped in, as well as you, Mrs. Ball. Our neighbors in South Kingstown have been celebrating their 300th anniversary this year. Their programming, academic resources, and public engagement have been significant. The town has marked this unique milestone with a lecture series on their town's history, large-scale bonfire, and they've elevated regular events like their annual Arts and Culture Festival, as well as something they like to call River Fire. I don't know if anyone's attended, or maybe the Water Fire in Providence. The town will also install a 14-foot sculpture designed in the influence of their history and identity as a community in their town green. The opportunities are really endless. Commemorative events like the semi-quincentennial can bring communities together and promote a sense of identity. There's so much progress to celebrate. During my time with RI 250, many people look on the bicentennial period with fond memories, and I think we can make this the best commemoration yet. The Rhode Island Department of State and Secretary Amore envisions coordinated projects with each municipality that can include pop-up archives presentations. Today, I've brought a small collection of the formative documents of New Shoreham and a collection of photographs that are currently housed at the Rhode Island State Archives. These documents range from the Charter of 1672 establishing this town. There's the Votes of Freemen from 1788, the incorporation documents for St. Andrew's Church from 1936, and photographs from the 1950s, some showcasing untouched landscape, which I found interesting, and I also cannot determine which area in this town it is. I'm asked some of my local residents, friends who live here, and they don't know either. So I'm between either Champlin's or I think it might be Beach Street, and then also Settlers Rock. This is an example of the types of displays that can be curated during an America 250 Block Island event, curated with the in tandem with the Rhode Island Department of State and the State Archives. In addition, RI 250 hopes to coordinate projects with each municipality that includes evergreen ones, such as the planting of elm trees in town greens or any area allocated by the community. Therefore, I come to you today to urge this council to propose a resolution that would establish a committee to mark this unique milestone. And I would now like to introduce Pam Gasner, our I-250 Commission member, to make some remarks
Wait,
on
Pam
this.
Gasner's involved in this?
Yes, she is. And she's made it to every. So I think that's quite a feat. The singular Block Island member to make it to every single meeting. So that is an
Fabulous.
accomplishment
All
in and of itself.
Good evening.
Hey, Pam.
I was nominated in 2022 to be on the committee, and Rhode Island was celebrating the Gatsby event.
Yeah.
And what's exciting is I retired right before I joined the committee. And in doing some research, we have a member, Samuel Dunn, the Dunn family, that was a privateer and involved with the Gatsby. So a lot of our work the last 2 years has been getting a website up and the branding and a logo and trying to plan for the state's events. And
Mhm.
so it's exciting to know. I've been kind of waiting, like, when can we start to plan some things? But a big thing is to get the curriculum written for the state of Rhode Island, to change that curriculum to include the Gatsby event.
Mhm.
It wasn't the Tea Party. There was lots of, that started the revolution.
Right.
Those ideas, and many came from Block Islanders. So I'm happy to review, sort of who was on our semi-sepcentennial committee in
Mhm.
2011. We did, Fran Migliaccio chaired that, but I'm happy to chair a local committee and think about who, is still an affiliation with
Wonderful.
members of the Historical Society and maybe others that can do something for the town to be involved. So
Great. Thank you, Pam.
I think a big question. As Vice President of the Historical Society, why is there no more interface with the historical?
With Rhode Island Historical Society, do you mean Block Island, just for this particular initiative?
Yeah.
I'm happy to work in tandem with the Block Island Historical Society. We're reaching out to the municipalities because, one, we think that each community knows their history, their own unique history best, and we want to give them the opportunity to kind of design it in whatever image they see fit. So I would even encourage the town council to maybe put this in motion and appoint somebody from Block Island Historical to lead this.
The picture you're talking about,
Yes.
it's a foot of Bush High Hill.
What was that?
It's a foot of Bush High Hill.
Nobody could recognize it, and I'm from South Kingstown,
The road,
so
the road was moved in 1964. The White House
that's
at
why.
the very bottom, the curve in the road has changed. The White House was expanding enormously, but that's Bush High Hill.
Well, I'm glad to.
Right at the end of the Corn Neck Road.
Yes, that's what actually Kathleen had mentioned, that she thought it might have been by the North Light. So thank you for, I've been really
Marion,
racking
did
my
you say
brain.
you were gonna coordinate getting a group together? Is that?
Sure.
I didn't realize Pam was on the committee, so I
Great.
think she's volunteered to.
Yeah, I heard that.
And
Lauren, thank you so much.
please let us know if you have any questions or need any help regarding this. I'm happy to be of service.
Thank you very
Thank you so
much.
much.
Really
I have a
appreciate that.
question, I have a couple of questions. Whatever happened to Rhode Island history in the schools?
That is a great question, and I wish I could speak to it better. My boss, Secretary of State Greg Amore, may be better suited to answer that, but with this particular milestone, we're looking to revamp history, and really this is something that he's very dedicated to as a former East Providence history teacher. So we're hoping to especially utilize this milestone to really bolster civic education and history.
When I was in school, it was in the 8th grade, and there was a textbook. And who doesn't know about the Gatsby?
Unfortunately, many Rhode Islanders. So we're hoping to change that with this particular milestone. It is unfortunate that it's lost on so many people because we are such an integral piece of American history. It's very unfortunate. But hopefully with a milestone like this, we can bring it to the people's attention and to the next generation.
It's terrific stuff.
And you working with the school? Yeah.
I am not working with them directly. I'm happy to coordinate maritime programming in 2026 is one of the initiatives that we're hoping to push through as well, with maybe bringing in the tall ships. And we have hopefully some good stuff in store for this
Great.
particular milestone.
Oh, cool.
Yes, we do have a website. It's rhodeisland250.org. We're bolstering our partner events. So Block Island Historical Society is one of the listed partners, as well as the Rhode Island Historical Society, and down the list. There's many, we're very fortunate to have many local organizations interested in this particular milestone, and as well as hopefully more of our own programming down the line.
Wonderful.
All
Any
right,
other questions for Lauren? That was terrific.
thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you all.
David?
Well, if I might just be indulged to offer a nostalgic moment. Martha won't say this, but I'm very proud to say that Martha's mother was the teacher of Rhode Island history when we were both in eighth grade.
She still has boxes of those textbooks in her.
I thought it was a state requirement. Wasn't it a state requirement?
Yes.
That's what she told us. What?
It was a hardcover book.
Exactly.
So just to answer your question, they do, I think they still teach it in the fourth grade. My kids had it in the fourth grade here
Huh.
with Christine
But
Monjay.
this was like a real, like, it wasn't like a section or a unit or whatever they call them. It was an actual hardcover book, real hardcover book.
I'll take a copy. I have extras.
I think it has, the State House on the cover.
Oh, that's cool. Any other questions for Lauren? Thank you. That was great. Item number 10 is not ripe, still with the lawyers.
Oh, right. I thought you said not right.
No, not ripe. The item number 11, single-use plastics on Block Island. I wanted to give and Mary Ann can pitch in here too, and I see a couple of Cindy and Will are here. I was invited to a conversation, it's probably in July now, with groups and individuals who are interested in ultimately reduction / elimination at some point of single-use plastics on Block Island. I know you guys probably have all the same stories about how many single-use plastics we use, and it's not, I mean, yes, it's appalling.
It's guys.
And one of the things that I've learned is that a number of towns around New England are the town itself is taking action sort of on its policing its own use of single-use plastics. So this conversation that I had with Cindy and Will and Dory led to a meeting last week or so with the group and Mary Ann and me to sort of start that conversation. But I happen to think that this is maybe a community opportunity. I think it's a in addition to being environmentally essential, I also think it's in some respects sort of a, not to be too cynical, a branding opportunity for the island to be out front on this single-use plastics issue. So I put it on to give you that background and to say it ain't going away. We're gonna be working on it, but I don't know, Will and Cindy, whether you want to say anything about this, but you got to come up, Will, and thank you. Sorry. Isn't it nice not to be talking about the charger?
It is. I just, my name is William Young. And this came to my attention because I read about a year and a half ago, I guess, that the town of Arlington, Mass had banned banned the sale of single-use plastic water bottles. And I think that anything larger than, anything smaller than a quart, you can't sell in Arlington.
Mhm.
And that led me to the woman who sort of spearheaded this after there was actually somebody way back in Lexington, Mass, started something. But so there's a woman in Cape Cod who got 15 of the 15 towns in Cape Cod to have municipal bans of single-use plastic water bottles, so that the town will not procure or use single-use water bottles. And that led to other initiatives in the Cape and Islands. Nantucket has banned straws and drink stirs, flexible can and bottle yolks, not the hard ones, but the soft ones, drinking cups and lids, plastic bowls and eating utensils, drinking water in plastic or non-recyclable containers of 1 liter, 34 ounces or less, single-use non-recyclable beverages pods like the coffee things. Martha's Vineyard was inspired by this group, which is called Sustainable Practices on Cape Cod. And they've banned all single-use beverage containers. So it's not just water bottles. They've gone through, and it was started actually by a group of 6th graders from a bunch of different schools. And they passed that ban. As I said, Cape Cod did 15 out of the 15 towns municipally, and 11 of the 15 towns have banned the sale of single-use plastic water bottles. My goal.
These are in town facilities.
Well, 15 of the 15 is
Right.
town, but
Yes.
11 of the
Yes.
15 is actual, they banned the sale of them it's a commercial ban.
Gotcha.
So in some towns, it's 32 ounces is the largest, they're the smallest you can have. In some towns, it's a gallon is the smallest you can have. I brought this to Dory and I reached out to this woman, Mabhavi, and she will be speaking at the DIC annual meeting October 8th. About what worked for her, and what she basically did is an education campaign through films, through letters to the editor, through podcasts, etc. And when I brought this to Keith, he said, I don't want to go with just plastic water bottles. I want to do, and my goal is to do something along the lines of what Martha's Vineyard did or Nantucket did. And as it turns out, just recently the state of Massachusetts did a municipal ban throughout the whole state. I don't know if you saw that, but
I didn't see that.
yeah, that was just a few days ago. Yesterday. So we are right there where
Yeah.
we should be. So
Sure.
I
Thank you.
applaud you
Thank
for taking this on, and
Yeah.
I've been working to get this going, but thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, Will.
Can I
Molly?
just ask really quick, do you have a specific goal in mind? I mean, have you written up something specific yet, or?
Well, Keith, what Mama Bobby, her name is difficult for me to pronounce. She started with a municipal ban on the Cape, and for all the towns that have actually done it. So my goal is to start with a municipal ban so that the government, so we, as a town, you guys wouldn't be procuring or using plastic single-use items. And I would say hopefully my goal would be more than just plastic water bottles. That would include any sort of beverage bottle or plastic forks, plates, whatever. In most cases, most towns, the recreation department is the one who's potentially the ones that's really going to be the problem. David Sniffen is already way ahead of the game. He's not using any single-use plastic, and he hasn't been for a while. So I don't think it's a big stretch for the town to do this. My next step would be to work on commercial bans. And there is talk about, most of the plastic that we throw away is not recycled. So actually there's some things that you may hear from other people that's going on about the dump not accepting plastic. That's a goal that they.
I'm sorry to interrupt. When's this meeting? The 8th, that's when?
11:30 at 1661 is the block island concern for the annual meeting, and that's when Mahavi will be.
Yeah, Mahavi will be speaking.
On October 8th.
Is that Sunday? I think Sunday, October 8th.
That's the Sunday of Columbus Day weekend.
Yes.
It is, yeah.
Indigenous Peoples' Day weekend.
Yes.
All right.
So that's my goal, is to move towards a commercial ban.
I'm kind of tongue in
I
cheek.
know.
Somebody's gonna come up with a shorter
Yes.
name for that.
And Will did share with me a sample resolution that other councils have used. Oh, you drafted that. Yes, right. So anyway, not going away, but thank you guys for working on it, and know that we're paying attention to it, because I mean, I could imagine that there are even commercial entities, I think particularly of like the plastic drink cups, for some reason, those are the ones that Millie and I were talking about this the other day. Because I get one almost every day. And
You're gonna be out there busting little kids' lemonade stands.
John, been talking about lemonade stands. We got, are we at the point where I have to put up a sign that says no lemonade stands on Andy's Way? I guess it happened this summer. I can't believe parents aren't saying, don't do that. Except the parents were there. But what I was going to say was, we had gotten started on this. I think we had a really good start with the plastic bags.
Mhm.
We were talking about the straws, and people weren't doing straws. And it was the, what is it, sip, don't suck, or what was, I can't remember. That
I
sounds
don't
awful,
remember
but I
that
think
at all, for the record.
I think it was something like that. And then COVID happened,
Yeah, right.
and we just got,
Yeah, yeah.
So,
and the other thing that, I'm sorry, Molly.
Oh, that's okay, go
Millie,
ahead.
Molly, whatever. Molly, the Nips bottles.
Mm.
And I know that was the way that they, where was it? Was it Nantucket? It was one of those places that did those, and they did it under plastic, not under banning nips, but under banning plastic.
Oh, right.
Which I think, we talked about it briefly last year, then somebody else was wanting to run with it, and that was the end of it.
Don't go after my nips.
so I just wanted to say really quickly that, so my daughter
It's okay.
was the one that
It's
brought it to the
check
town
in.
council to ban the plastic bags. And then Mary Cerulli got her invited to a thing in Boston with the Massachusetts Green Initiative. And I think we met that woman from Arlington, and the other cool thing she had was a tap map where, there's a lot more, there's a lot more water refilling stations out here now than there was then.
Right.
But so Massachusetts really has, like, you're right to copy them. They really have a lot of this figured out, so that we don't have to figure it out. We can just copy them. But you want to do that in conjunction, right? So like, you don't want to just say, we're not going to let you buy a little water bottle, but we're going to tell you to go bike 15 miles or walk 15 miles, right? You want to have opportunities for people to refill their water bottles, and you want to do it in conjunction.
No, that's absolutely true. And I've actually, and Dory will admit this, I've been pushing Dory, and she had a meeting with John Brunig early on to say that we need more water filling stations. And because of the water issue, he had sort of said, no, we're not doing anything. Although we had a discussion, Marianne and Keith, and we may revisit that, because he did say that they don't really use much water. So in the grand scheme of things, but absolutely. Part of the education and part of what we will be doing, or I will be part of the effort, is to have restaurants say, yes, you can fill your water bottle here. And really have other alternatives. Yeah, we can't just ban
Right.
without alternatives. And filling stations are absolutely part of the whole problem.
There's an app for that, and I don't remember the name of it, but there is an app for, like, if you're in a city and you want to fill your water bottle, you can go on the app and see what stores or restaurants will let you fill your water bottle. But you might want to see if we could get on that.
Yeah, that'd be great. Absolutely. Yeah, no, there definitely has to
I
be.
don't know why.
We can't just
do
do the commercial ban and say, sorry.
Right. I just want to make sure that, like,
Absolutely.
we have a
Yeah.
balance. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for coming tonight. The next two items are not ready either. Broadband governance, Jeff was out of town. Amy was, it's just, this is a fall catch-up item, but I wanted to just keep it on the agenda so that we are continuing to pay attention to the fact that we need to work on it. Property tax classification strategies, quite frankly, over the last several weeks, both Amy and Marianne have been dealing with a whole range of issues that have not given them a lot of free time to be working on this. And actually Sven and I, since we were in the conversation for the last few years, Amy and Marianne emailed to us their files on what other municipalities are doing. And since I should have announced at the beginning, Sven and Laura are in London, actually. So that's why he's not here tonight. He and I will work on this and have something ready for presentation at our October 2nd meeting. Item 14, financial reports. Amy, are you still awake?
I'm here. Hello. So you have August financials. Obviously, we're still very early in the year, but it's a great time to start to look at the summer program and see how that is evolving. I guess at the top of the financial highlights would be the abatement that we discussed earlier. That's obviously going to be a revenue impact that we need to consider over the subsequent 10 months. So that is out there in terms of a revenue shortfall.
Amy, what's the rough gross dollar amount of that in terms of property tax?
I don't have it in front of me. It is in your memo. It's between $275,000 and $300,000 roughly.
Oh, is it in there? I didn't
Yeah.
see that. I'm sorry, I missed that. I
Well, that's
apologize.
why I was questioning it. It's so big.
So big.
Yeah.
You know, the kind of thing that in a non-reval year, it would have been obvious. But we missed it.
Yeah.
So.
Sure.
So that's something we'll have to be monitoring on our side. In terms of traditional revenue, building permits are actually already well ahead of schedule. Those obviously fluctuate throughout the year. I'll have a lot of peaks and valleys. So it would be great if the momentum on building permanent revenue stays where it is today. Other seasonal revenues, I know that you'll talk about in your summer wrap up, but Harbors had a great season and you can see that in the numbers. Town Beach, a little bit off from last year, but obviously still very much within range and, really happy with how the seasonal revenues are shaping up.
Mm-hmm.
On the expense side, there's not too much to talk about yet. I would not focus strongly on year-over-year comparisons in that it's just too early to do that. There's a lot of variability in timing, but I'm happy to take questions if things jumped out at people.
No, it was the revenue side that I was particularly focused on, Amy. That's helpful.
Sure.
When will you remind us, I feel like I've asked this question about 14 times a year. When do we start getting numbers from the state that gives us a sense of how sound our estimates are on tourism tax dollars, basically, meals, rooms, etc.?
Sure. If you look at page 6, you will see the hotel and cottage tax numbers under line 4040. That's the July cottage tax numbers. So you can see those year over year, July of 23, I would say significantly or a little bit higher than last year. I'm just pulling up the June hotel and meals, which you don't have in the packet in front of you, but I do have. And bear with me one moment.
While you're looking, if I recall correctly, these do lag, right?
They have a 2-month lag.
2-month lag.
Correct.
Yeah, that's really what I was wondering.
Yeah, so June in terms of meals, 77,000 versus 71 and 75 in the years prior. Hotels at 84 versus 80 and 79 the years prior there. And we should see the July numbers any day.
Great, thank you.
Sure.
Are there any?
I have a question, right? Because it seems like the tax numbers are up, whereas water usage was down by 4%. What does that, does that just mean the price of eating out went up?
That's a big part of it.
A
And
lot.
Jess Willie usually does a really good job of diving into
Yeah.
this at the tourism annual meeting. So I would definitely encourage people to participate in that conversation. But as we talked about over the last few years, both the number of rooms, well, has been added to, and some have been taken off the market, but those that have been added have been traditionally at a much higher price point than what's coming off the market. So
Right.
that's definitely a driver in terms of the revenue that flows back to the town.
Sure.
There are a number, more than I realized, of places that aren't on town water too.
Yeah, and I would, one of the things that occurs to me is that I think John did a very good job of, pretty actively reaching out and trying to, do everything he could to conserve, right?
Right.
And 4% would not shock me if that resulted in, a fairly substantial, and it was front of mind for people, given the financial town meeting and, the investments that we're making, et cetera. Maybe it worked. Some of it worked.
It's but my point was that if
No,
you have,
yeah, I'm sorry, I was making a different.
if you have a different, you can't compare hotel tax
Oh,
or
yeah, right.
room tax to water usage because
I see.
there were so many. As I said, more, I had forgotten that place, like the National was non-water.
There is traditionally a relationship though, and actually the July numbers just came in today. So the meal, I'm just going to rattle them off, but the meals revenue for July was 155,000 versus 174 for July of 22. So you see a drop there, and then your hotel tax current year about 126,000 versus 155,000 last year. So we are seeing drops there.
The weather sucked.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I've heard. Yeah. Right.
So Amy, yeah, the one question, and kind of it's Amy and Mary Ann. So I looked through, where does ADP's fees fall into this as our payroll benefits provider? And the reason I bring it up is you're shaking your head. ADP?
Oh.
Yeah. So where does that fall? Because ADP is a good provider, having lived in that space for a long time, for big, huge companies. And there's a lot of outsourcing that takes place now. So I don't know what our renewal is due on that, but there's opportunity where we keep struggling to have an HR person. And some of these smaller companies that play better to the size and scale that we have can potentially provide an HR person as tier one support for employee issues. And it can be rolled into the fee. So I don't know if I couldn't find it to see if that's a huge expense, because we're paying for someone who loves 15,000 people and bigger, and we have what, 200? So, and do you know when the renewal is on that? It may be so minuscule it doesn't matter, but as we keep cutting the HR budget to have a person, it may be worth looking at, is there an outsource opportunity? And maybe it's with ADP if the price is reasonable, because they do it as well. But some of the smaller players could be a better match for the size of our town.
Sure. So the expense side is on page 11 under finance. It's wrapped into the line 6,900 data processing and bank service fees. It is obviously not the entirety of that line. I'll get you a total for last fiscal year, but roughly I put it in the $10,000 range. And we have over the years gone back and forth between ADP and Paychex. We have not worked with some of the smaller providers. They were not able at that time to handle some of the Affordable Care Act provisions that we needed to be implementing. I think they've probably caught up in terms of their ability to manage that. But I will come back to the council with last year's total and the renewal timeframes.
to look at as an alternative to having an HR person in the budget. You know, I think we had cut it down to what, like 15,000 is left for consulting. But you could add that to the existing money spent with ADP and potentially have
Yeah.
another alternative. So
really-
just something to look at.
Yes.
I would just off the cuff say that those types of companies, ADP, and I believe some of their competitors are struggling in the same way as many other companies with their own staffing. And so the training levels and experience and expertise that they bring to the table is not quite what it was years ago. And so that's a challenge that they are facing. And we don't necessarily want to inherit that, but it's something that's worth looking at.
Any other questions for Amy? Amy, thank you so much as always.
Thank you.
Hope all's well with you. Next, item 15, receive and act on report of the town manager.
So your town manager's reports before you. There's a couple of things I would like to point out in the town manager's report. There is a memo there from Allison Rain as it relates to some of the upcoming General Assembly legislation that was passed last session, and some concerns about the timeline and meeting those timelines. And we're not alone with that. It relates to the local zoning ordinance and
Yes.
subdivision regulations. And we're hearing that both the League of Cities and Towns, the Association of State Planners are looking to the General Assembly to extend that deadline. Implementation was supposed to be January 1st. And as you all know, with any kind of zoning ordinance or subdivision regulation change, even the advertisement process, the planning board, then to the town council, then the advertisement, 6 months is not that long a period of time. So I will have this on the council agenda for October 2nd. For a number of reasons. The specific templates for the changes of the zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations are supposed to come out this week sometime. We expect them today. I'm not sure if they come out. Allison is more on top of that. And also we will be applying for some municipal technical assistance to help implement and draft and change our zoning ordinance and subdivision regulations.
And it
So-
seems like this fits well with one of the, you know, the sort of priorities we were talking about recently, that Martha has brought up a number of times, which is, you know, what do we do in terms of a rewrite of our, you know, if we're going to be doing it anyway, let's figure out what a proper budget is for cleaning the whole damn thing up, you know?
More on that, and we'll probably have more information. Allison will join us on that meeting on October 2nd. And secondly, and more important, which isn't included in your packet that I would like to read to the council, is a letter I received from Chief John Lynch. Dear Ms. Crawford, since February 2023, when I was sworn in as police chief for the town of New Shoreham, I've done my best to serve the residents of this historic town. However, over the past 6 months, several things have changed for me personally, including the birth of my grandson and a greater need to care for my ailing parents in Connecticut, who now require more of my attention. Unfortunately, living in Block Island and fulfilling my work obligations severely limits my ability to support my family needs. Therefore, I've made the difficult decision to tender my resignation, effective October 2nd, 2023, as chief of police, so I can return to Connecticut to be closer to my family. Until then, I will continue to work diligently to make the transition to the new chief as smooth as possible. It's been an honor to work beside such great professionals and amazing community. And I thank you and the town council for placing your trust in me. I wish you and the community in New Shoreham the best in the future. So I just want to pass on to the council that Chief Lynch has resigned as of October 2nd. And I've already started looking for a possible interim, and we'll move forward with that advertisement.
Thank you. We certainly wish him well. Bill?
I will follow that.
Yeah.
Couple meetings back, Tom was in the presentation for this, so we did Mr. Langdon.
Yes.
And they were 5 or 6 days, that was the other day, from computers. Cameras and so forth, so that's really all, it's really not a lot of something to replace it and so forth. Is there an update on that as to what that one would happen? And is our update as to the insurance company as far as the recovery, the whole was it recovery?
So we've started working with the insurance company. We started submitting some of the stuff. The digitized system at the police station was one of the particular equipment device that was struck. And working with the insurance company because we no longer have replacement parts for that. And so we would look to upgrade it, and it looks like the insurance company is going to support the town in that upgrade, and it'll be through the insurance company. We're still working out some details. I don't have an update on the cameras. I think Tom had asked you for the name of the company you folks have done. I'm not sure if you've gotten that to him yet.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I thought he asked at that meeting for the name of your company. All right, which you should probably do to give him the name of the company. Yeah, all he's asking for is the name of the company so that he can use that. And that's where that is. We're probably, Mike and Tom are now working on that, and we finally gotten things put back together. So that's where that stands. And I'm not sure where he is.
Any other questions, or thank you, Bill? Thank you, Mary Ann. Item number 16, discuss and act on board, commission, and committees. We have a resignation from David Russa. I'm sorry that he's getting off of this group, but I'm heartened by his letter that he is still going to be engaged. I know that he's in the process of working on his house, so he's not going anywhere, which I think is important for us in terms of continuity. So next we have an appointment of Dan Warner, the new Block Island School principal, to the school building committee. Millie, what do we need? A motion to appoint?
Yes, please.
Yes, he's the new principal.
Would somebody make a motion to appoint Dan Warner to the school building committee, please? Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor indicate by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No. Oh, okay. I thought that was a no. I was gonna say, do we need a roll call on this? This does bring to mind, Mary Ann, when you think it's appropriate, I think the community would appreciate sort of an update on the current status around the
Yeah, we
building
should.
project. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a substantial amount of money, and I know how much time you're spending on it. So, when
Yeah.
you think it's appropriate. I
At the
think
last
it'd be good.
building committee meeting, I mentioned that to him
Did you?
because they're at
Yeah.
60%, what they call 60% DD, and they're meeting with Rhode Island Department of Education on Tuesday. And once that process gets done and approval, we'll be looking to have documents on the street for the bid.
Great.
So, yeah.
I also think anything we can do to encourage the school committee to broadcast their meetings.
Right.
We really need to be moving in that direction.
Do they, by the way, yes, I could not agree more.
I mean, it's a lot of money.
Yes.
It's a ton of money.
Yes.
And they need to be more accountable in terms of letting constituents.
Just in terms of transparency.
See the meeting.
Yes, yeah. One of the questions I have, and that no one here can answer it, but is whether I can't figure out a way to get notified regularly when their meetings are, because I would go. I couldn't find it on the Secretary of
I
State.
thought the
but that's-
Secretary of State has a notification mechanism.
Yes, and I get them for a number of our boards and commissions, but I don't get them for the school committee, which I'm sure is not the school committee's fault. I'm sure it's Keith Stover's fault. But it just, I feel like I hear occasionally, oh, did you go to the
That's
school
right.
committee meeting last night? And the answer is, I didn't know it was last night.
They
So,
had one the other night, excuse me, after our meeting
ah,
at 7 o'clock,
there you go.
which I didn't go to.
Yeah. So anyway, Millie, one question on these announcements, on these vacancies, we have a 2-year, 1 5-year and 2 1-year, what, right?
I'm sorry, that looks like it's a holdover.
Millie, what vacancies do we have?
Funny you should ask, Keith. We have a water district vacancy for 1 alternate for 1 year, and we have a sewer district vacancy for 1 alternate with a 1-year term. And we have a conservation commission vacancy now to fill the seat of David Russo.
So
which
do we have 2 conservation commission or just 1?
We have 1.
This represents David.
That's
David,
correct.
okay, gotcha. Because I couldn't remember whether we had filled Ned
We
Phillips'
have.
spot.
We had filled
Yeah.
with Dorothy.
Great, right. Terrific. Thank you. Motion to adjourn, please. Second, all those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no, we are adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Dr. White? That's actually fascinating. Will you go home and take a shower for Christ's sake?